World Health Organization urged all sides involved in the Syrian conflict for ensuring a safe access to healthcare in the country. In Haiti, criminal armed groups killed more than 180 people over the weekend as violence worsens. For the bicentennial of the Battle of Ayacucho in Venezuela, a flower ceremony is held in front of the sarcophagus of the liberator Simon Bolivar, the national pantheon. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The World Health Organization urged all sides involved in the Syrian conflict for ensuring a safe access to healthcare in the country. W.H.O requested to guarantee the safeguard of health personnel, health centers, and the continuity of medical services. On November 27th, terrorist groups launched a large-scale overnight offensive against the national armed forces, taking over several cities and proclaiming a coup to the Bashar al-Assad's government. The office of the Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed on Monday that he personally authorized political asylum for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his family. Likewise, the head of the office, Dmitry Peskov, reaffirmed that Moscow remains committed to dialogue among all regional countries regarding Syria. In addition, the diplomat warned that a very complex time is approaching associated with instability in the Arab nation. Nonetheless, the Kremlin spokesperson did not provide any details on the whereabouts of President al-Assad, noting that no meeting between the Russian head of state and his new guest has been scheduled yet. The United Nations Security Council discusses the current situation in Syria following the overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad. Russia's deputy ambassador to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky, said that the meeting was called for because of the implications in the country and in the region as a whole. In turn, Polyansky pointed out that for Russia, it is important to understand the current role of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force in the Syrian Golan since 1974. In this regard, the Israeli army confirmed the deployment of military troops inside the demilitarized area in the Golan Heights under the excuse of protecting its people. An Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said there is great regional concern over the collapse of Syria following the overthrow of the government by terrorist cells backed by the U.S. and Israel. During an interview on Sunday in a national media, the head of the Persian diplomacy affirmed that they are closely following the events in Syria. He stressed that he has had meetings with 8 countries in the region and all have expressed concern that the country does not move towards disintegration or become a territory for terrorists to destabilize the region and for Daesh to seize power that years of President Bashar al-Assad's anti-terrorist struggle prevented them from controlling.
Everyone was concerned about the events in Syria, and there was a concern about the serious consequences that the disintegration of Syria would have for the region. The concern being that Syria could descend into a civil war and move towards a failed state and internal fragmentation.
The Iranian foreign minister also referred to future relations with Syria.
We are closely following the events in Syria, and our interaction with them will depend on their behavior and on what policy they will adopt towards the Islamic Republic of Iran. Our criteria for the political process is the Resolution 2254, which will lead to an inclusive government in Syria where all the different parties have their role.
The Netanyahu administration ordered the Israeli occupation forces to take full control of Syrian buffer zone after allied terrorist groups overthrew the Bashar al-Assad's government. The Israeli Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, has commanded to the occupation forces to keep up advancing to take over the area with the excuse of creating a zone free of strategic weapons. Moreover, the minister assured to initiate contacts with the Russian community to set up a siege of the alleged arms trafficking of Hezbollah Lebanese resistance. In all, terrorist groups, with the support of Israel, the United States, among other nations, overthrew the Syrian government, taking over the whole territory. Israeli genocidal forces have dropped shellings on different spots of the Gaza Strip, claiming at least 30 lives on Sunday. Among the hit areas was the Gaza downtown Bureij refugee camp, killing 15 people, including children and women. Likewise, local outlets reported bombings on a municipal park in Gaza City, annihilating at least 12 people. And in Lebanon, at least 2 people were killed following shelling by the Israeli occupation army in the south of the nation in a new violation of the ceasefire agreement. The Ministry of Health confirmed the death of the people during an airstrike perpetrated by the Zionist army against the locality of Dibon. The Israeli troops continued the aggressions against the Lebanese people under the excuse of attacking positions of the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah. According to official figures, more than 3,000 Lebanese have been killed and more than 14,000 have been wounded since the beginning of the most recent escalation of the Zionist offensive against Lebanon. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In South Korea, the Justice Ministry has imposed a ban on President Yoon Suk-yeol from leaving the country while he is investigated on treason and other charges after decreeing martial law last week. The Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials requested the measure to the Ministry of Justice. The agency has also asked police and prosecutors to transfer the case to it. South Korean police and prosecutors are investigating Yoon on suspicion of treason, mutiny, and abuse of power, charges that also hand over several senior government and military officials involved in the controversial move. Although President Yoon is clinging to power, events have taken their toll on him, and according to the South Korean pollster Realmeter, the president's approval rating has plummeted to 17.3%. Meanwhile, in Beijing, Chinese Premier Li Qiang warned that deglobalization is exacerbating strains on the global economy. During a summit attended by leaders of major multilateral financial institutions, including the IMF and the World Bank, the Premier highlighted the increasing uncertainty in the world economy and noted a rise in discriminatory trade measures since 2020, stating that the trend of deglobalization is worsening. Qiang's remarks reflect growing concerns among global leaders regarding the potential for escalating protectionism to disrupt international trade and economic cooperation, which are vital for recovery from recent economic downturns. Qiang also pointed out that the number of trade barriers has been increasing annually, complicating efforts to stabilize economic growth.
In the context of weak world economic growth currently, uncertainty caused by this issue has further increased, causing major interference to the operation of the world economy. Some countries are now imposing high tariffs at every turn, setting up protective barriers with more and more restrictions on trade. Since 2020, the number of new discriminatory trade and investment measures in the world has increased by more than 5,600 per year, far exceeding the pre-pandemic average of 3,000 per year. This increase is indeed too large. It can be said that the trend of deglobalization is getting worse and worse.
In Georgia, anti-government protests held in the capital Tbilisi since the end of November have left more than 400 people arrested. Deputy Interior Minister Alexander Daraverdidze informed at a press conference that during the protests held since November 28th, more than 30 people have been identified and criminally prosecuted. He also detailed that 372 people have been arrested and proceedings have been initiated against them, of which 62 have been subjected to administrative detention and more than 100 have been fined. In this sense, the official also pointed out that 150 police officers were injured in the demonstrations. He added that during the rallies, several cities' infrastructures were destroyed, as well as cars and material goods belonging to its citizens. And at least 28 people were killed and 37 injured in an airstrike by the Sudanese army on Sunday. The new attack comes amidst clashes with the paramilitary rapid support forces that have been going on for almost 2 years. The Southern Belt Emergency Room confirmed that the bombing left significant human losses and great material damages. It was known that the wounded were taken to health centers to receive adequate medical attention, as 29 of them were burned. It is important to note that both the military and the paramilitary forces are facing accusations of war crimes in the context of this conflict. And in Haiti, criminal armed groups killed more than 180 people in the last 48 hours. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said that at least 184 people were killed over the weekend in clashes led by the leader of a gang in a neighborhood of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. With these figures, death toll in Haiti so far in 2024 amounts to 5,000 people. Haiti has been suffering from years from political instability and a security crisis linked to the armed paramilitary groups that control 80% of the capital and commit murder, kidnapping, and sexual violence on a large scale. In Cuba, the Civil Society Forum Against Racism was held in Havana. The event was held at the headquarters of the National Union of Jurists with the purpose of making visible the commitment and work of the largest of the Antilles in the fight against racism and racial discrimination. The debate was attended by representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the United Nations system, and national and foreign experts and community leaders. The president of the Cuban United Nations Association, Norma Goicoechea, pointed out the importance of the meeting at a time when the world, despite international conventions, continues to show racism and xenophobia.
We talk about racism, racial discrimination, all kinds of violence, intolerance, and xenophobia. We must take into account the very important role that not only promotes the adoption of policies or denunciations, but also integrate actions to carry out this combat to achieve not only a greater perception, but also a greater operability in taking actions to eliminate these problems, which are very serious. In Cuba, we still have some problems to which the Cuban Color Program provides answers.
We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Venezuela, the Bolivarian government officials laid a wreath at the National Pantheon to commemorate the bicentennial anniversary of the Battle of Ayacucho. The historical event took place on December 9, 1824, under the directives of the great Marshal Antonio José de Sucre and the liberator Simón Bolívar. The Ayacucho victory was the result of the leader's strategy in conjunction with the courage of the Latin American patriots who managed to outnumber the Spanish soldiers. Precisely at the wreath-laying ceremony, the Minister for Internal Relations, Justice and Peace of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, highlighted the importance of the event that dealt a heavy blow to the Spanish forces and set in motion the end of its imperialism in Latin American region. In this contest, the Ayacucho 1824-2024 International Colloquium concluded, recalling relevance of the battles as a political symbol and the validity of the call for unity among the peoples of the Americas. The President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, greeted the closure of the forum, highlighting and praising the successful results of this meeting that brought together several historians of Latin America. He also highlighted the importance of this great historical battle for the construction and development of the Latin American peoples. Maduro made a call to joint communicational efforts to publish the papers and speeches of the Ayacucho International Colloquium, and referring to the future of these events, he urged to be inspired by the conquest of the liberating armies and not by the foreign ones. In this regard, during the closing of the colloquium, Latin American historians and researchers called for the unity of the region and highlight the battle's historical transcendence and its relevance in the regional scenario. Luis Francisco Blandón with the report.
In the
second cycle of conference, historians and opinion experts reflected on the significance of the Battle of Ayacucho up to the present day and how it can inspire new forms of integration and cooperation in the continent. In 1824 and 1825, after the battle and the victory of the Bolivarian army, what began to be discussed was the project of Latin American unity. And the press says it. It is part of the work that I came to present here. It is an exercise of the tracing of the way in which the press in Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia received the victory, how it was published, in what way it was made known that, indeed, in the south of America, the liberation of the territories from the Spanish dominion had taken place. So it is very interesting. They affirm that new research and tools currently allow a constant and renewal revision of what happened in Ayacucho, and that sustains the patriotic discourse of a united and sovereign America after the victory of 1824. There have been two interesting phenomena. One is the digitalization of archives that has allowed new young historians and also recognized historians to show us other visions of that Ayacucho, what happened in Ayacucho, why after Junin the victory of Ayacucho was so important. And secondly, there is a historiographic renovation by not abandoning the patriotic discourse that was always present in the academies of history of the 20th century. A deep agreement in the face of the current challenges in the region, inequality, poverty, and political fragmentation. Hence the importance of an insurgent history that offers other aspects of the independence struggle. Through these 300 years, there have been different forms of participation and resistance of the peoples. It has not always been the same. That is why there is a common thread. We talked about that from 1824 to the present. There is a common thread. There is the peoples in resistance, the leaders that appeared. Our America has a great wealth of men and women who have given their lives for the liberation of our people. From Venezuela, the national government promotes the celebration of the bicentennial of Ayacucho to make a greater communication effort and bring these reflections to the academies and educational institutions. And furthermore, to make an effort now with the new communication technologies of this era to produce pieces like this, as teleSUR is doing. teleSUR is doing a tremendous job. I congratulate teleSUR for the work they are doing in the diffusion of all these materials and this colloquium. You do not know the spiritual food and the inspiration that you have brought us with this colloquium in these days. And I hope that you participate in all the events of commemoration of Ayacucho for the highest thing that we are going to do with our people.
El coloquio finalizó con las canciones.
The colloquium ended with the patriotic songs that accompanied the emancipation deeds of Bolívar and Sucre, an unprecedented decoding and restoration of the original manuscripts of those great musicians who expressed with revolutionary fervor the process that gave independence to a large part of the continent, which resonates today in the collective memory and honors the Bolivarian legacy 200 years later.
Luis Francisco Blandón, Caracas, Venezuela.
And in Brazil, the Rio de Janeiro Public Prosecutor's Office filed an appeal to search the sentences on the guilty ones of double homicide of Councilor Mariel Franco and her driver Anderson Gomez, which occurred in 2018. On the night of March 14, 2018, in Rio de Janeiro, former military Ronnie Lessa and Elcio Queiroz were pulling up alongside the victim's car, firing 13 times, from which only 8, Fernanda Chavez, survived. The aforesaid culprits were charged with double homicide with triple aggravation, attempted murder of the surviving 8, and the use of a stolen vehicle. As a result, they received a 78-year and a 59-year sentences respectively, and they had to pay around $118,000 in compensation. Nowadays, the Public Prosecutor's Office argued in its appeal that some fundamental items were not adequately managed in their first sentence. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.